Hello, it's me, Mr. Nichols. I bet you thought I was gone this week. No, I'm gone. But there are some things I want to tell you just real quick before you get into this video. I don't know what's forward when you're in. It's a timeline that goes this way. I don't really know. Like, is there really an answer to that? It's not gonna transition like slap. You don't care. So I'm gonna walk in here to Blackboard and show you around just real quick English 1301. So, should have done my hair before. Oh, I have this really good guy who'll do it for about $70,000. Really good haircut. So, weekly course content is where you're going to want to go because I'm gone. You got to have a place to go. Either you saw the sign on the door that says that I'm out for baby, or you are online and this is what you do every week anyway. So hi, it's nice to see you again under no different circumstances. Weekly course content. Go down to week 5, and they're not here yet because I'm literally recording them right now, but you can see the brief summary of the contents, and it says class discuss reading critically and think critically, read article bias. We're not actually doing that. I'm going to do previous lessons from a prior semester, which I think work a little better anyway, and I always hope to get to the reading articles for bias at this point, but it's a little early since they're not required to use research yet. It's just something I'm telling you because I know some of you will try to with the cause effect paper. Instead, I'm doing the lesson where it's just going to be, I'm going over the cause effect sample once more, this time in front of people who have questions, I think. And I'm also going to be going over the library presentation and how to use the research databases. I'll go over that in more detail, I think, when we get to the research paper, but I want people to have a cursory knowledge of it now. In addition, if we scroll down to the APA stuff, that is going to be the second lesson for the week, and that you'll see another intro of me doing this in a minute. Or not in a minute, like an hour and a half or so when you watch the next one. So the week five readings are here, and it is a different book. So it is the Hacker and Summers book. It is the little spiral bound book. It's about that tall, or that thick by that tall, about the size of a large phone or an anti-vaccine pamphlet, or the little pamphlets at church that talk about various types of sinning. Or like a newsletter fold out, something at the doctor's office. I should probably remove all of these, but I'm not going to, I don't think. I'm in a hurry. We got a baby to be born. So there's going to be a week 5 video here and a week 5 video here. You may have even seen this link that you're at right now in a announcement or an email that came that I emailed to everyone saying that I would be out for the week for the birth of the baby. And after you're done watching those 2 videos, I think you'll be prepared at that point to do the quiz. It'll be over the week 5 readings, so the stuff from the Hacker and Summers book. And you'll do the APA lesson information that's in there as well. So it's going to be the lesson and go home, computer. We're going to do the APA lesson stuff and library presentation stuff and going over the cause effect sample. There will be no questions about going over the cause effect sample though. This quiz is a little longer, 60 minutes, something to pay attention to. You have a little extra time. And I believe I'm giving 3 attempts on this one instead of the normal 2 because citations are just difficult to get right. At the end of the week, I mean, you can do that and have it done when it's supposed to be due. In fact, it should be there we go. But on Friday, before that quiz is due, the cause effect essay is due. So it's going to be due Friday 10/9. Notice the quiz isn't due until Sunday 10/11. And also note that even though I'm going to be gone, that quiz is not going to be available until Thursday 10/8. I don't want to change a bunch of dates because I don't want to be inconsistent with future semesters when I put the same coursework back in. It's going to mess up all the dates. And I won't remember to change that one little date, and people will be angry next year too. So I'm just going to keep it consistent. The availability date will stay the same. But this video I'm talking about now is going to be here. You might have seen it, and the APA video is going to be there. You will submit the essay, and then the due date is going to be the quiz. So now at this point, we're going to see just the content from a lesson in a prior semester where I'm going over the cause effect sample. I'm taking you through the research databases and how to find information, stuff that might be useful, stuff you might be interested in. And then I am going over the most important aspects of the library presentation for the PJC library and how to use it, how to get around it, how to use it for information in this video. So let me be clear, this is a prior semester video. You are not supposed to pay attention to any of the dates that I am mentioning things that are done. Perhaps not even the order in which things are done. That may have been switched around. So all you really should be paying attention to is the content itself and what I am saying should be done in essays, what I am saying is important for credible information on the research databases and the library presentation, as well as how I say to search for research if you decide to do such things. I mean, you could, if you wanted. I had one student one time basically turn this cause effect paper into an early practice on the research paper. They used like 5 articles or something, and I was like, wow, they went really far out there. Nobody has to do that. But that was what they wanted to do, and they felt comfortable doing it, so they did it, and it made their research paper great lunch for later. If you got the free time, sure, why not? If you don't have the free time, don't push yourself and then say Nichols made me do it. So without further ado, let us watch me in a prior semester teach to a classroom with no mask on. Insanity. See you in the next video. Well, I mean, I'll see you in a second, but from the past. I might even see you at the end of the video saying, I hope you liked the video. We'll see. Bye. Or, I mean, hello. I mean, whatever. Just watch the freaking video. Agree. Okay, so here's Blackboard. What we're doing today is, I feel like this was useful last year, and it was useful when we did on the narrative essay as well. So in the same way that I showed you the topics before I started talking about cause and effect, then we went back and finished talking about the assignment itself. I've yet to actually read through a sample essay with you guys and what makes it good, like I did with the first one. So we're going to do that today first. Then in the past, I would usually start talking about APA this week. And while I do plan to start that next time, in realizing that some of you may decide to use like research on the second paper, you don't have to. Nobody has to. I know some people are going to want to look up like websites and things though to like help make their case on this cause effect paper. If that's the case, there's some things you need to keep in mind for like how to find good stuff. And so usually I would talk about documentation first and how to document the things once you've found them. But I think it's more important to find like where you should even go to find them first, because there are definitely bad places to find information. So first thing I'm going to do is go over here to assignments. Go to the cause effect essay assignment, and we're going to look at the sample paper. And I feel like this is probably, of all the assignments that I have that have a sample paper, I feel like this is the most achievable one. Because if you look at the samples like for narrative essay and the ones in the future, essay 3, maybe the annotated bibliography and the research paper that we're going to have coming up, I mean, they look like something that anybody could do, anybody could write. Could y'all be quiet over there and not talk while I'm talking? Shh, hey, stop. So of all the sample essays that I have, I think this is the one that looks most like a normal essay, one that's like easy to accomplish if you're the one that's trying to write the paper. Because I think it looks like anything anybody could write. It's one of the ones that's really like content based, and even though I'm not 100% like super into the content that she's using, like it's not 100% great, but like it's good enough. And I think I gave her like a 95, maybe even 97, but I probably these days would have given her a 95. I chose to use it on the topic that's the one that people write about the most, and the one that people get wrong the most, which is topic 2. I don't know what it is, and people they wouldn't tell me what the major cause of school shootings. They're like, oh, I know school shootings. I've read about them maybe, or I don't know like why people choose that one so often, but People love writing about school shootings. But they're almost never really thinking about what could be done to fix it in a way that seems like it would actually solve something. So that particular topic is the one for the sample paper. And if we look at what the topic is, I actually retired the topic because it was written about far too often. I don't know, somehow I'm a little okay with school shootings still being one of the topics because people don't use it as much, but one of these problems used to be childhood obesity, and I got rid of it because just so many people were writing about it, and the sample paper was better than what they were writing, so I said, I don't want y'all to have to fight an uphill battle every time, so I'll just get rid of it. So it was, what do you see as the major cause of childhood obesity? And then based on your identification of its cause, so based on the cause you identify, formulate some specific solutions for the problem you select. So you have to say what the cause of childhood obesity is, then solve for that problem. Not just the problem of childhood obesity, but what you say the cause is. Because if you say the cause is, like she does, lack of parental involvement or attention, then that's what you need to fix. Lack of parental involvement and attention. Don't say that parental involvement or attention is the problem and then tell them not to buy, like, say, don't eat cereal, like sugary cereals. Like, it doesn't solve for the problem you're saying is the problem. And even if you came out with some whacked out answer that made no sense, like unicorns are the problem of childhood obesity, that's what's causing them, then you need to figure out a way to kill unicorns. That should be your solutions. Like, how do we kill unicorns? How do we, like, make them leave our property? I don't know. Whatever it is that you say the cause is, that's got to be what you solve for. So, like, go down here to the sample paper, and if we look here, there's little hints. Pick one, childhood obesity, the one cause. So I got to narrow it down to one. No need to deal with effects unless I talk about it in the introduction, because you're probably going to say something like childhood obesity is an epidemic or something, and that's, it's caused a lot of problems, like in health and in life or something. And you can do that in the introduction, but that's the only place you should. And then provide solutions to that problem. So the sample paper goes like that. And there's another sample paper on voting, which that's still a topic you can use because nobody writes about voting. Almost nobody. So I feel like even if you saw a paper on voter apathy, people are so apathetic to voter apathy. No? Nobody? Okay. Apathy is? I never thought about that. I say it all the time. I didn't think about it. It means like don't care. So you have like voter apathy. It's like voters who just don't care to vote. Like my vote won't make a difference, or like there's no reason for me to care. I thought it was kind of interesting. Just now that I realized that I've been using the word apathy for forever. Never thought people know this word. So, Magnus Baraka wrote, well, he did it. It was Magnus Baraka in this case was a female mother. He's very gender fluid, Magnus Baraka is. He'll go through different, he's non-binary, or actually no, he's not non-binary. He switches between binaries pretty regularly, whether he has kids, no kids, white, Hispanic, black. He goes everywhere. Good old Magnus Baraka. And this particular time, he was a white mother of two. So it's weird to say he was a white mother of two, but nonetheless. Introduces the problem first, gives some background information on it, talks about effects. Says a growing epidemic in the United States is childhood obesity. If left unmanaged, it will create severe health problems that will follow the child into adulthood. Not only is childhood obesity a health concern, it can also create issues with the child's self-image and the way other children perceive that child. Obesity in children can lead to that child being a victim of bullying, which is another major concern in today's society. So she's talking about effects here, but it's kind of an introduction strategy to show like this is an important issue that needs to be looked at. Obesity is a preventable disease. There are several factors that can cause childhood obesity, but one stands out the most: lack of parental guidance. That's the one I was looking for. Guidance. Parents are simply too busy for their children. Children lacking the parental emotional support will turn to something else to fill that void, such as food. So she's saying the main cause, the major cause of childhood obesity is lack of parental guidance. What exactly she means by guidance? She says here parents are too busy for their children. Maybe that's why they can't provide the guidance. Or they, no, that's it. So then I hope after this, because it says you have to identify the cause, I'm hoping she was going to explain to me how she knows or what she means by lack of parental guidance being the major cause. So she's going to spend some time with that. Now, this is not something you have to do on the 2 other papers. The one that's what are the causes of popularity, that's just going to go paragraph by paragraph. Here's a cause, here's another cause, here's another cause, here's another cause. The effects paper is going to say what are the likely effects of a severe protracted shortage of like blank cell phones, and you say like, well, here's an effect if there were no cell phones, here's an effect if there were no cell phones, here's an effect. So those are just kind of paragraphs that function almost like, not like lists, but like one after the other. You're just coming up with different things that would happen in that case, or different causes. This one is approached differently. You say the main cause, then give solutions. So that's what she's going to do. So what do you mean by lack of parental guidance? Let's see. We live in a world where both parents usually work outside the home. So it's true in my case. The morning ritual of getting kids ready for school and parents getting ready for work consists of quick sugary cereals and Pop-Tarts. Parents no longer take the time to cook a well-balanced meal in the morning while the family sits down at the breakfast table. Everyone is always in a rush to start their day. Fast food places like McDonald's and Taco Bell provide the parent with a quick way to feed their children while on their way to their other obligations, such as Girl Scouts. Dinner is spent either in front of the TV or in the car, eating out of a fast food bag. Parents have packed many activities. Thinking about a meme I saw. Parents have packed many activities in the children's lives, but have failed to meet their basic emotional and nutritional needs. For lunch, most parents rely on the school cafeteria to provide the nutritional needs of their child. Man, I loved that cafeteria when I was a kid. Free lunch. It was awesome. That was about the only thing that was amazing about your parents being poor, was school free lunch. Especially like in the morning. I don't know about y'all's schools, but like our mornings had like sausage, biscuits, and gravy. Like I got there every day for them damn sausage, biscuits, and gravy. Like they would be like packing up some days, like the bus would get there late, and I was like, I need sausage, biscuits, and gravy. Like, sorry, school's already started. I was like, you're gonna give me the sausage, biscuits, and gravy. I was like, this is the only free food I get. How am I gonna learn if my head is not filled with calories by which to function? So, for lunch, most parents rely on the school cafeteria to provide nutritional needs of their child. There, the children only have 30 minutes to get to the lunch line. Sit down to eat, get back outside. This is usually the only sit-down meal the child will have throughout the day. School lunches are also lacking nutritional value. School nutritionists have only recently begun to try to change the school menus to provide the children with healthy alternatives. However, this is still a work in progress. So I actually kind of I usually wouldn't approach it this way, but it works in this case. She thinks that the best way to show how parents lack the ability to guide their child, I'm assuming she just thought back to what's my day like, because she had kids. And she kind of went through her day, kind of took a little tip from like the narrative section. We were talking about narratives, and she said, well, I can kind of approach this paragraph like a narrative where I can show the cause by showing what a typical day is like for parents and children. And I have never felt so angry about a paragraph that I agreed with so much. I felt personally attacked. I was like, we do eat a lot of McDonald's, but those meals make her happy. It's why they call them Happy Meals. They come with toys, which we could also just buy separately. It's the only damn thing she'll eat. Such a temper. Not a temper. She just doesn't do things she doesn't want to do. It's a very interesting 2-year-old. Wasn't like my other one. She was younger, but perhaps I should guide her better. You will eat the chicken nugget. I mean, even those aren't healthy. You will eat this celery. She would just die. She would not eat them. So, saying that the parents do not throughout the day, really kind of implying they don't have the time. They work too much to have the time to really provide for the needs of their child nutritionally. They work a lot. They're moving to fast food places. It's just go, 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 go. And that's only gotten worse since this was written. Despite the fact that I think employment is up. Gross domestic product is up higher than it was back when this was written. Wealth inequality is also up. So the people at the top have more, and the people at the bottom have less. So this problem is only worsened over time. We're having to take up multiple jobs to do the same thing that they used to back then. Housing insecurity is high. Food insecurity is high. Medicaid and food stamps and SNAP and WIC are all being slashed. I read this morning. Yay. So Next, I hope to see immediately after identifying the cause some solutions. What can we do about this? And it better solve for lack of parental involvement, like the guidance. I need to see you solving the parent problem. And I was like, well, how do we solve a parent problem? Hopefully she manages to do that. She says, there are several ways to remedy this growing problem of childhood obesity. First, educate the parents on the importance of a well-balanced meal. Implement several programs to their child's school, such as a food rave night. I don't know what that is. Bring the child to the school with the parents and set up several cooking stations, much like a cooking class, but involve the children. Explain the importance and nutritional value of the item they will be cooking. Make it a fun experience for both parent and child. Most parents are so busy sending their children to sports practices and ballet, they fail to realize that spending one-on-one time with their child, learning something together, could be more beneficial to their child than grabbing a burger to go. Okay. Parents also tend to buy potato chips and quick snacks to stock their pantry. Why don't you shut up? They don't realize that buying a bag of oranges is just as easy and quick as grabbing a bag of potato chips, but much healthier. Not as cheap, though. Aren't oranges expensive? No, they used to be expensive. I think they get cheaper. They're expensive again? They're not. They're cheap? Awesome. But they go bad. Chips don't go bad. You can throw them things in the counter. Like, I don't want chips for like 3 months. You open them up, fresh chips. You think for 2 days you don't want an orange. They're gone. They're mushy. Terrible. Like, what do? You have to have a plan and like know what you're going to eat. What do I do when my wife's not in the mood? I don't know. Neither here nor there. I think it's a pretty good solution, actually. I like the idea of not asking, like, I don't like suggestions. A lot of students want to suggest things like the parents should feed their children healthier foods. Well, I mean, they're not doing that already. So what is suggesting to them that they do this going to help? Instituting programs, though, having things pop up that are available to the parents could get them to make a change. But just saying you should feed your children better, like that never works. If it were working, we would do it now. It's not like the person that says, hey, you ever thought about feeding your children healthy food? And, oh, I've never thought about that. I'll change my ways right now. Just doesn't. That's not how life works. You can't solve problems by just suggesting people do stuff. You have to come up with something that's going to keep them from doing it. It's one of the reasons I think crime has been going down in the last few years is not because people now have less of a desire to do crime or somebody said, hey, stop doing crimes. It's because every damn thing you do goes on social media. Every house you try to steal from has a Ring camera on it. I keep seeing all these videos on YouTube, and would-be criminals must, like in their free time, hop on the Wi-Fi and watch some YouTube, and they're like, shit, these people get caught all the time. This is really, look at it. We can't, how are we going to see that from the street? Look how tiny that is. It pisses me off. Ring.com. You get like, there's just no way to you got to find a way to get away with the crime, and it's just getting harder and harder to do that. So because we have a society in which social media and personal surveillance are getting cheaper, it's a lot easier to just keep people from doing crimes because they know they're going to get caught. In a way that telling people, hey, you'll go to jail if you get caught didn't work because there was always the chance you might not be. But a camera could be anywhere and hiding, and you just never know. Yes?
Yeah, we actually watched a weird ad they did for some relationship commercial. We thought it was like a relationship commercial.
Yeah.
But like as the whole thing progressed, and when it got to the ending, it showed something crazy. It was a guy who did a student there who did a school shooting, and after the video ended right there, it went back through. It showed close-ups and everything about the guy himself. Like he was in the background the whole time.
Yeah.
He's on the computer. He's looking up stuff like gun stuff, whatever. He's planning everything, and then it shows him acting on his plan. Like, that's crazy. We never thought to look at those.
That is crazy.
No one ever looks at stuff in the background or whatever.
See, that's weird. All I ever see all the time are kind of like the opposite of that. Like the two kids who like vandalized their school.
Yeah. But, I mean, like,
and they checked the cameras and the kids had covered their faces, but then they found out that the kids had connected to the school Wi-Fi. Their phones had auto-connected to it, so they knew exactly which two students were there, despite the fact they were wearing masks on their face. It was hilarious. There's just so many ways to get caught these days. So systemic changes are the ways in which, like the way in which the whole world works for certain people, or like programs that are available, or mechanisms that are available in society. That's how things end up changing, not by suggesting, like, you stop doing crimes. Don't let your kid eat chips. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize chips are bad. They should put that on the package. They do. It's on there. What is sodium? Okay, the reality is that parents, and there's the next, hopefully she's got to have another solution because it's not just one solution, it's multiple. The reality is that parents have lost touch with their children and doing so created problems for them. Urging parents to listen to their children, ooh, I don't like that. Even just taking 30 minutes an hour a day to spend quality time with their child would help that child feel more secure and less likely to binge on junk food. I don't like that. Urging, this is suggesting in a different word. Like it didn't work before, why would it work now? Stocking their food sources with healthy items and taking the time to cook. And would cut down the need to swing by fast. So yeah, but they're not doing it now. If time is an issue, parents could take a few hours on a Sunday to cook several meals and freeze them. I guess so. On weeknights, thaw them out, sit at the dinner table to eat. Family dinner time around the table is like a small time out during the busy day. It's time with the family can simply enjoy each other's company. I don't know. I don't really like that whole paragraph. I don't like those solutions. She's already given me one good solution, one that's like very original and thoughtful and creative. I think she's basically describing like meal prep Sunday here, isn't she? Isn't that what they call it? Which I think that was actually before people were even talking about that. She came up with this idea. So I was like, well, it is a suggestion. It may be by writing it in the paper and if somebody were to read it, they would go, oh, I never thought about that. That would be useful. Do you know what's actually real big recently besides meal prep Sunday that's gotten parents to like cook for their children? Usually if you have a little bit more money. It was on Shark Tank, and these people came and they said we have this great idea for like a food delivery service for people's houses, and they were like nobody wanted in on it because they said, or like the person that got in on it like couldn't make it work or something. But eventually somebody came and found them after the show and said, hey, I actually am interested in this idea now. Y'all have explained it a little better, or like they did something different and they just saw the guy on the street and like it ended up being like the biggest deal in Shark Tank history, even though the deal happened off the show. But it was the company called Plated, and you may have heard of Blue Apron. You know, heard of that? Where it's like food comes to your house in all like the right measurements. All you got to do is mix it together by the instructions and then throw it in the oven. Which is kind of expensive. Like it was so funny. Mark Cuban was saying, but you have to compete with people just eating out. Why wouldn't they just eat out? And they were like, you don't really get it. There are people who don't want to eat out because it's a hassle, but they also don't want to grab fast food, and they also don't have the time to cook, but they want to cook. So we send the food to their house ready to go that day. They cook it that night. Boom, they're good to go. And he's just like, nobody's going to do that. But now it's like $1 billion industry. So Mark Cuban was wrong in that one case. But little ideas like that are original, and ideas like this are too. Like, let's just cook all the meals on Sunday, freeze them, thaw them out during the week. My wife would never go for that. She'd make these massive portions of food during the week for meals, and she's like, I mean, look at this dinner I made. I'm like, this is amazing. This is really good, honey. And all I'm thinking is, she's never going to eat these leftovers. She's like, I love this. And then like she puts it in the fridge and never eats it. And I end up eating like all these leftovers on like Saturday. And they go right here. Because I can't throw away food because I grew up poor. If I throw away food, it feels wrong. It feels like I'm sinning against a God. There are people in Africa who can't eat. They always say, like, well, I can't send the food to Africa. No, but I can eat it in their honor. It's kind of how I always felt, you know, like when my parents would say that. They were like, my parents would say, there are kids in Africa who can't eat. I don't even know if it's true. I never knew if it was true. But I was like, well, we can't send it to them because it'd be bad by the time it got there. What we can do is eat it all and not throw it away because then it would feel good. Really, you know, I think people are eating the least is like, what, North Korea? It's bad there. Let's see. So conclusions, very short, sweet. There are very simple ways to subside this trend of childhood obesity. Parents need to take the time to educate themselves and their children on the importance of their health and what it can mean for their future. Parental support to create a healthy diet and exercise plan is the key to success in overcoming childhood obesity. And I said, this is great. I like the identification of the major cause, formulation of possible solutions, one of which was very specific, which is great. I love that you had a thesis for the cause in the intro and a related thesis, the conclusion for the solutions. Good work. There's only 722 words, which isn't that long comparatively, but got a 95. Didn't need a references page of any kind, so because she didn't use any references, so that wasn't necessary. So I think that does a great job. It's the content is there, even if it's not perfect. Just one really good creative solution, that's usually good enough. But yeah, I like it. Any questions about that paper? Does it seem clear why I like what I like about it? Remember, the other topics have completely different concerns. And do not confuse them. Make sure you look at the paper before you start, because I've had some people before write about what's the major cause of cosmetic surgeries being so popular. Formulate-specific solutions. And I'm like, that's not one of the topics. Popularity of cosmetic surgery is one of the topics, but not that. Next. So usually I wouldn't start here. I'm starting here. Do I even want to go to the do I want to do this, or am I going to be going back and forth enough it doesn't matter? Probably back and forth. We'll start here though, and once we get out of here, we'll do it. So, if any of y'all had the librarian come to your class yet and talk about one of your classes and talk about the library? Either way. I never feel like I can commit to when he comes. And used to, when he would come, I told him, okay, we got to do this in like 30 minutes. And he would take like an hour. And I just don't have that time to spare. So instead, I do it instead of him. But just I have to cover like these little library things. But the most important stuff I hit is about evaluating internet sources and locating journal articles, and also searching the databases. And when I say databases, I mean we have like access to research databases where you can find legitimate research instead of having to go to Google and Wikipedia suicide facts, or whatever it is. People just type in Google suicide facts, and people always ask me too. They're like, "But I used Google Scholar." Yeah, that's crap. I don't like that either. Problem with Google Scholar is a lot of times you get about half the article. It'll show you like a page here and there, and students are like, "Well, I've got enough. I've got a quote." Like, that's not really. You're not looking for quotes. You're looking for information that'll help. And you have to see the whole information to know if it'll help. So I do have to cover like the library stuff first, but I'll move into what kinds of sources you need to find, and then how to find journal articles in the databases. I'm actually going to reverse it from the way he has it here. My computer's freaking out. I feel the fans like really blowing. You should hear this thing when I could play VR. Like it goes, like it's like I can barely hear like my sound over it. How to access PJC Library resources. So first, what is this? A link? Click it. I mean, I don't have to click it. I mean, just go there. What do we got? Man, it's broken. So we'll go to www.parisjc. That does nothing. www.parisjc. Let's just go to Google. Google PJC. That's what y'all do, right? Parish Junior College. I think you can go to my PJC and maybe also get the same link. Is that right? No. I mean, it'll take you to the main website, but you need to go from here to, watch carefully, at the top, quick links. Scroll down to library services. This is how we get to the library page. From here, there's something called Ask a Librarian, where you can send emails if you're from Greenville, Silver Springs campus, or whatever campus. This goes to Carl Covert, the librarian. You can ask him a question about something you need to know. Additionally, let me see, where is I think it's just the online catalog here. You can search for any books that PJC has in its library catalog. If you want to find Stephen King's, I don't know, this is probably like a bad idea. I'm going to check it. Oh, it actually does it, okay. But it's just finding any title with the word "it" in it, which is stupid. If you're like, hey, I want to read a Stephen King novel, you can do that for fun. Of course, the first thing it gives you a reference to is the Shawshank Redemption film, which is not actually a Stephen King book. But there's some Stephen King books down below. Oh, look, It. So you could read books that you find. You could say, oh, it's in Paris, and they'll just have it send. You can request it. It'll send it over to the Greenville Library. You can read it that way. You could also just go down there and browse the library. You know where the library is, right? It's where the testing center is, where y'all took your TSI test. same room. And then, let me see, what else? The virtual reference desk, you can ask them a question right here by typing in a little chat and saying, hey, I have a question. And it tells you when they're available, like when they're open. And that's how you can talk to the library. If you need help acquiring anything from a library that's not even us, like it's some other library far away, like they can do that as well if you need to, but rarely do the students need to do that here. Where we spend most of our time are on the off-campus databases. There's two topics here, like on the side on the gray. There's databases alpha and databases topic, but you want to go to databases off-campus. Because if you think of main campus of Paris Junior College as being Paris, then we're considered off-campus. Additionally, I think that you're only not considered off-campus if you're on the Paris campus and you're on a wired computer. So a computer that's wired into their system. Like I think even if you're on their Wi-Fi, it's considered off-campus on the Paris campus. So it's always just best because it works. It doesn't matter if you're on their campus or you're not. The off-campus link will work. So it's just best to go there. Once you click there, you do your student ID, your password, just like on Blackboard, as it was originally. If you've changed it, it won't be the same. For me, it's different because I'm staff. But you'll then come to this link. There are two databases we will use frequently in the few weeks that we have this semester left. Not a few weeks, we have quite a few weeks. SA3, you'll definitely have to start using the databases, and the annotated bibliography and the research paper, you'll be absolutely required to use the databases. SA2 is kind of just an option, but if you want to find really good information that'll help make your case on the cause-effect paper, you could find that stuff here. This database, I'm going to start with the one that's not as good first, called the Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center. If you go here, it's more like a place to help you generate ideas or to find news articles, not a place to find really good, credible research when you already have a perfect idea of what you're going to write. So you can search an idea here, or if you're like me and you never have any idea what you want to do, you just need to browse around. They got a Browse Issues light bulb button here. And you click that and it gives you all these different topics that you can, look at, choose between, find information about. See all kinds of fun stuff. So if you're like, oh, I've heard of this in the media lately, socialism. You're like, I want to look at what is socialism. You could go to the socialism link and it's got what you need to know about democratic socialism. I never say to ever go here, this featured viewpoints area, stay away from it. This is where like the people who run the database have made like a little area where they like sum up different issues. So it's very much, that stuff's not credible. It's like their own little mini Wikipedia entries. So you can't cite that stuff, but they also have access to academic journals within a category. They have access to, again, I say no viewpoints. Little reference works, biographies of people involved, Karl Marx, Adolf Hitler, Crystal Eastman. Some videos, but I wouldn't mess with that. Audio. There's news articles, which we'll be using quite a bit for SA3. Statistics may actually help you quite a bit on this paper if you went to like some of the statistics charts that they have. Websites maybe, but they're Gale Opposing Viewpoints online collections, so it's like websites they wrote themselves, so we don't really know if that's credible. Because I consider the database to be like a store that leads you to the products that you need. Don't consider it to be the place you go to ask the questions. It's like, while nurses know quite a bit, when you go to the doctor gives the diagnosis. Don't be like, well, I'll talk to the nurses and figure out what they think I have, because the doctors have had a lot more education so that they can make those diagnoses. There are some people who I think nurse practitioners, where they have a little bit more that they have to learn so that they can diagnose most common issues and recommend people for things that they can't figure out. But consider this to be like kind of like a nurse that points you to all the doctors, in a sense, or a general practitioner doctor that points you to all the specialists, or you might not want to cite them for everything. But I go back from here. This is just kind of a place where you go for finding ideas for papers. And it's going to be very easy on Essay 2 to not have to come here to find ideas because you already know the topics I've given you to choose between. You're not going to have to brainstorm. On Essay 3, you will have to brainstorm. The other database, I don't even like this database that much. It kind of makes me feel icky even going here. So I'm really not a huge fan of it. Because I feel like a lot of students will end up there and write their research papers on it, and then they'll get bad grades. This database is the one we're going to use constantly in this class, especially in the last 8 weeks of the class. Everything after spring break will be done on this database. And this is called Academic Search Complete. So you can see this doesn't help you find a topic at all. You show up and there's nothing but a search bar. So you already kind of have to know what you're looking for. And you might show up and you think, okay, well, I'm going to look up communism. And you see a lot of articles. But one of the things you're able to do on this database immediately is it has all those ones, the types I was telling you about that were in the separate boxes earlier, like news, audio, it's all mixed together. But you can get rid of all the crap almost immediately by checking 2 boxes on the side, or maybe just even 1 box. You want to make sure you have the full text option, so it'll give you the full text of all the articles that are there. That should be checked automatically. Notice there are 12,000 articles on here, almost 13,000 on communism. And if I type scholarly peer-reviewed journals and hit check, that limits me down to 7,273. So it cut the number almost in half. And this database does mostly have those. And a lot of you checked that box on your info sheet. Sometimes I wonder if people just checked that box on your info sheet as the most valued form of information because you're like, it looks the longest, and I bet that's what he's going to tell us in the class. You were right. Do I have to go back to the other thing to talk about why they're the best? I'll just tell you first they're the best. You can also limit by publication date. So if you want things from like 1934 to 2020, you can have that. Different topics have different needs, though. So like when we get to the research paper, a lot of students want to write on various topics like, I don't know. Let's say we talk about, this is one you can't use on the research paper, I don't think. Maybe you can. We'll see. But sex education. So if we do sex education, and I search for that, see if I uncheck the scholarly box, I get 9,000 articles, but if I check it, I get 6,235 articles. And I go down here and I see like all the results, 6,000 articles, but they go from 1951 all the way to 2020. That's literally the time when AIDS hadn't happened yet. They didn't have sonograms to see babies inside of stomachs. I'm using the wrong word, stomach. I mean like belly, like the outer, the big belly. The stomach is where food processed. So I was using that wrong word. It's fine. Incubating the baby inside the stomach. No, that's not where the baby goes. What? My bad. Okay, sorry. I got distracted. So you can limit by probably a time period that you think is more appropriate. I usually, with scientific topics, depending on the topic, limit it to at least the last like 10 years. But other concerns are going to be different. Like, for example, if you were to limit to the last 10 years in technology, especially something like artificial intelligence or smartphones, limiting to 10 years would mean you're going to have articles about how smartphones could affect our lives when all that had come out was like the iPhone 2. And like life is way different now. Oh, by the way, I went up looking for stuff because my daughter she told me one day when I limited her access to TikTok to 1 minute per day, on her phone. She said, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Oh, because it's very dangerous, and I wish I could just delete it from your phone, but you can already re-download it, so I'm just not gonna mess with that. So I'll just keep you from using it." She was like, "But why?" And like, it's a huge problem. So like, you might have TikTok, but basically all information on your phone, like the military doesn't want people to use TikTok because of the huge cybersecurity issue that it is, because of how China can ask their companies for like data of like its users, and they just give it to them. Unlike here, where like Apple can say, "No, we'd rather not unlock this guy's phone just because you think he might have been a murderer." Don't really have that in China. So dangerous app. But you wouldn't know that if we there wouldn't even been articles about TikTok from what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Oh, that's why my daughter never had to request TikTok. She told me like it musically just turned into that. They were like, "There's tons of pedophiles." They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, did we say musically? We meant TikTok. It's called TikTok now." They're like, "Oh, it's a different app." I know, no more pedophiles, but there are. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I swear this is like real stuff. So I'm going to do with this sex education, because 10 years is a decent amount of time for biological science, but technology would need something like 5 or maybe even 3. I'm going to go ahead and do just the last 10 years. That's going to take me from 6,235 articles to 3,812 articles, which not a whole lot less, but still less. And if I know that I'm specifically looking for stuff within a specific area, first of all, I know I don't want any book reviews, because I'm not going to be buying any books and need reviews of them. I know I don't need magazines, because those aren't going to be the best type of information. So I'm just going to click academic journals, limit it there. And then I've got a certain subject I'm maybe thinking about. Oh, actually, let's go even further. I know I can only read English, unfortunately. So I'm going to limit it even further, get rid of those Spanish, Turkish, Persian, Portuguese, and Chinese articles. Limits me to a few more. Now, I can limit by subject. So there's the thesaurus term or subject here as well. So I can talk about sex education specifically in the United States, and I say like, actually, yeah, that's what I'm interested in, is United States sex education. Because I had read an article that said that states where they don't have comprehensive sex education are usually states in the South that generally vote conservative, but as a result of those sex education laws, there are more teenage births and thus more usage of Medicare and food stamps. So that the states that have the most restrictive sex education laws generally use more federal aid, despite having beliefs in paying less taxes, which I thought was a very interesting chain of events. So I'm interested in the United States sex education. Pleasure in sex education, didn't expect to see that. That'd be interesting. How gay and bisexual men compensate for lack of meaningful sex education in a socially conservative state. But I'm going to scroll through these and find stuff that might be interesting, and probably going to get to do that on like a research paper more likely. These would be kind of heavy articles, I think, for just essay 2 that's due in 2 nights, 3 nights. But this is where you can start going once we start needing real research. In fact, on essay 3, you have to find news articles, so you won't even be using this database for those, just news articles on that one. This will be used on annotated bibliography in the research paper, or if you really, really, really wanted to use it on the cause effect, you could. And I mentioned earlier the thing about scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. What makes those better? Let's go find out. You're gonna go on a journey with me. That was lame. I don't know what to do. I already talked about online catalog. Search and databases did that. I'm not going to talk about Boolean operators. I mean, I could. So if I reset my search here and I went there, and I did a search and I wanted to find communism, how did you end up doing communication barrier? Obviously, there's a communication barrier with you. So communism, and I say, well, actually, I don't just want communism articles from scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. I want ones that mention communism and socialism. So it's got to be an article. If I put the word "and" in there, it actually means like this little examples of Venn diagrams. If I use the term "and" it's going to say that all the stuff in the blue camp is stuff that would be communism articles. All the stuff in the pink camp is stuff that's socialism articles. If I do and, it's only going to find articles that contain both words as keywords. So it's actually going to find a smaller selection of articles despite saying and. And would usually mean more, but this means articles that have to be about both. So if I type and, it should knock it down significantly, maybe by half. Oh, it's actually down to 640 now. So that's actually a tenth of what we had before just by saying I want articles that only talk about both. Now if I go and I say, well, I actually want any articles that are about either one of those things because I'm doing a lot of research on both concepts. So I don't necessarily have to have them talking about both. I just want this or this. That actually oddly makes the search even larger. So before it was 7,000, now it's 13,000. It doubled my search results because I'm getting all the communist articles and all the socialism articles. I'm sorry, communism articles, not communist articles because they weren't written by communists. Well, not necessarily. And now if I say, okay, well, I actually want communism articles, but I want the ones that are only about communism and cannot also be about socialism. So I actually want to get rid of the ones that have socialism involved. I want to see communist articles that do not have even a mention of socialism. And if I do that, I, weirdly enough, don't take out that many original articles because communism got me 7,000, and apparently only 1,000 other articles mention socialism, which tells me that while communism might have some overlap with socialism, socialism and communism actually aren't the same thing. Probably a lot of the articles are talking about the confusion between the two. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think communism is like where the government owns everything, whereas socialism is where the people own everything. And then the one that's in the news lately, democratic socialism, is where everybody still owns all their stuff, but I think there's more emphasis on like the public good or something, social programs, more taxes that pay like for services that we all need, or I can't remember. It's some difference between democratic socialism like the other two. Basically, democratic socialism, you still get to own stuff. It's not like everybody owns things collectively, as people always think. Now, what if I did not socialism and not democratic socialism? Doesn't probably limit it by much more, like none. What if I do it the other way, though? I can switch the terms around and say, well, I want democratic socialism articles that do not mention socialism or communism. And it says does not yield any results. Does anybody want to guess why that is? It's because the phrase democratic socialism contains the word socialism. So it's going to find an instance of a keyword, not necessarily that exists by itself, but any keyword that contains the word socialism in it. So I actually cannot find articles that don't also talk about socialism. It's not possible, unfortunately. But I can find all the ones that don't mention communism, which is 167. So all kinds of different, and there probably just aren't that many democratic socialism articles in the first place. How many of those are there? 182. So yeah, there's very few articles on the databases even about that. But almost all of them don't contain any mention of communism. So if I go to here, so that's Boolean operators, which I'm supposed to talk to you about for the library presentation. Evaluating website content. So when you're on the databases and searching like I just searched, and you find the checkbox mark that says scholarly peer-reviewed academic journals, and you limit the search to only academic journals, then you're going to be able to find articles where most of this stuff is kind of irrelevant. The only thing I had you messing with was currency. Currency meaning whether the article has been written recently. So when I had you limit like sex education articles the last 10 years, that's me helping with the currency bit, because if I've got somebody talking about sex education in the 1950s, you know, and the doctor's just mistaken about how the female body works because they didn't know back then, that would be important to know. And each one of these, authorship, sponsorship, purpose and audience, and currency, have different concerns we need to look at when we're deciding whether or not to use an article. or if there's anything that could make an article problematic that we need to be aware of if we have to use it anyway, which may be the issue on the third essay we write as well. But this should help you definitely evaluate websites if you're planning on using any just websites for the essay too, because some of you might have already picked out your websites, you've already got your essay written, you're just waiting to get that done. So with authorship, we're trying to evaluate, is the person who wrote the article credible? Sometimes you may have difficulty even establishing whether you know the person who wrote it, and that's problematic. So does the website or document have an author? That's the one thing to look at. You can scroll around till you find an author's name, find the word by, search the site or navigate to the home page, look for the About section. Then once you've found that author's name, you can determine their credibility by checking their credentials. And if they don't list their credentials, you can search the name on Google, see if you can find somebody associated with that kind of topic on Google and they exist already, and see what their credentials are, if they've written articles that are cited by other articles or other authors. Basically find out how credible a source of information this person is. Then you can check if the author has their own homepage that provides evidence of their expertise in that field, maybe a curriculum vitae, which is a word for like scholars who list the stuff they've done throughout the course of their career. The problem is if you don't do this stuff, then you're the kind of person who thinks that climate change is kind of an up-in-the-air issue that people aren't sure about. Because all you did was Google, click a site, never once tried to evaluate the credibility and see who wrote it. Same with vaccines. You never once tried to look in, is this person somebody who's credible, an authority figure on this? Somebody who's done lots and lots of research. And when I say research, I mean real research, not looking things up, but somebody who has done scientific tests and experiments and tested things, then reported the results of that test to others, and then continue to do more tests and then read the test results of others. Not somebody who is sitting at home all day or who sits at work and Googles stuff and Googles the word autism with vaccine, so they're basically guaranteed to find the articles that have the autism in there already. Talking about people who have done real research, people who don't have a vested interest. And sometimes these authors do. Sometimes you'll, in fact, it's been a major part of the Democratic debates right now, the primary debates. Has anybody followed those at all? I always have my students tell me they hate politics. That's just because you're young. When you're older, you'll realize it has an effect on your life and you'll follow them almost religiously. Just right now, your parents worry about all that. And you're like, oh, they're so angry all the time. I don't like politics. Then later, you realize like your life isn't going well. And you're like, why isn't it going well? Oh, because people are taking my stuff. I care about politics now. It's kind of most adults transitions into caring about politics. If you're young and you care about politics, oh gosh, it's only gonna get worse. You're like, you're gonna be so caring about politics later. But the Democratic debates right now, there's been almost every single debate that pops up. At some point, Bernie Sanders will point out that this candidate has this many billionaire donors, this candidate has this many billionaire donors, this candidate has this many billionaire donors, talking about how many billionaires they have contributing to their campaigns, and he proudly totes that he has no billionaire donors. What he's trying to establish is that he's the most credible of candidates because he doesn't have big money interests. He has the interests of the people. That's why he says what he says all the time, according to him. And based on what I tell students in class and have been telling students for years, there is some truth to that. You try to look for where is the money, where is the motivation. And if you see that the author has a motivation, you kind of have to question what they say. If you see that there's somebody advocating for how great guns are for society, we need to have guns, and you see that that person owns a gun company, well, they have a vested financial interest in making sure that you buy more guns. So it's probably somebody you shouldn't listen to. Maybe they got into guns because they started a business because they wanted to defend their home. Their, granddaddy had to defend his home against some intruder. And so that's why he started the gun business in the first place. The problem is that's also bias. That means because he had an emotional attachment to guns, he started a business. Now he has a financial and emotional investment in it. So he's not really a credible source. Somebody who has no interest in guns and just researches them to see what they do. They don't care about them. They're not angry. They're not happy about guns. They do just do the research. Doesn't matter if they find out that guns are good for society. They'll go, this data says guns are good for society. Or, this data says that guns are not good for society. And whatever the results are, they publish them. That's the kind of people we need to be looking for. The problem is a lot of times you go to websites and there won't be authors there. You have no idea who wrote this because nobody wants to attach their name to it. Can you think of anything like you've ever made, written, painted, built out of Legos? Anything where when somebody saw it, you didn't want to take ownership for it? You're like, Mommy, look what I did. Mommy. And if you did some art and you posted it to the internet, you'd be like, look what I painted. I did that. The only time people don't want to take ownership for something is when they're not 100% sure that they're right. They don't want to be called out for stuff. Or they don't necessarily believe in what they're saying. They're just saying it. That's kind of scary. You don't want to follow the advice of somebody who's not willing to associate themselves with that advice. So that's authorship. That's how we look at authors. We look at who's saying it and why are they saying it. With sponsorship, this is kind of like looking at who's saying it and why they're saying it, but at more of a who's funding the person who's saying it level. So who sponsors this site? And often sponsorship is unclear or hard to find. Sometimes it may not be given. We have to search really hard for it. Who owns this domain? Who owns the newspaper? You can check the URL for hints about sponsorship by determining the site's domain. Sometimes you see .com would be like a commercial website. .edu is educational. .org is nonprofit. .mil is military. .net is network. Country of origin is included as well, like UK is .uk. JP is Japan. You can find the country of origin in that way. However, these days it's a little more loosely configured because .coms are everywhere and for all kinds of purposes. But they usually are businesses. Educational websites generally do operate under educational. This is one of the reasons where, like, if you look at any article about Amazon in the New York Times, have y'all ever happened to do that before? Maybe. If you do that, they'll always have a line in the article that says, disclaimer, New York Times is owned, or maybe it's Washington Post. I think it's New York Times. New York Times is owned by Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon Inc. So if they write an article that's a news article about Amazon, they always put that in there. Why would they do that? Why would they tell us that? Why is it important we need to know that about their article before we read it? That an article about Amazon is being written by somebody who works for a company that is owned by Amazon.
Do you know that they're biased about it?
Yeah, at least that they could be. Kind of like if it's one of the reasons where I kind of felt wrong years ago, even though I very much believe in PJC as an institution, and I did before I came here as a teacher. A lot of things that people won't often think about with teachers is a lot of us become teachers because we want to inspire, because we want to change the world, not because we go, that's where the money's at. We're not like, yeah, let's go. As a choice between investment banker or teacher. Usually we get into teaching because we believe in it passionately, and educational institutions as well. But still, because I was linked with PJC years ago, when they were talking about a vote that would tax this area, so that there would be a vested financial interest for the community in PJC that would lower people's tuition costs and stuff and give better access to resources and possible additional amenities. I felt like it was wrong to tell students my personal opinions on that because I work at PJC. I have a vested financial interest here, and whether or not I want to think it does, it probably does affect the way I think about it. Of course I think the institution's important. I work here. Right? It's very unlikely that I'm going to be like, oh, this college is useless to people because I'm the one who works here. So just that fact of the matter right there means I probably shouldn't be telling people, hey, you need to give your hard-earned money to this thing where I work. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think we were allowed to do that with students. I think there's a legal problem there. But even like out in my daily life, while I was hoping, I think family and stuff would just vote because they saw the letters, couldn't really make that assessment on my own. You need to know who sponsors it. You need to know not just who's the one writing the article, but who's paying their paychecks, who's giving them the funding to write it. I actually learned this lesson when once upon a time I was a movie critic for the Texas A&M Commerce paper.
Wow.
Yeah, but for the Texas A&M Commerce paper. Like, I was a student, and I wrote articles because they let me go to movies and then write articles and then publish them.
That was a good job.
It wasn't a job I didn't get paid. However, those midnight previews they would, do back in the day. Now they do like Thursday night previews and sometimes even Wednesday night previews so they can boost box office numbers. But there was a local theater in town, Commerce actually had a theater, and you could go there and you could see midnight previews of movies. I saw a lot of great movies over the years. The problem was, in the first semester I did this as a movie critic, the movies were all really bad. Like it was some old like Hugh Jackman time travel romance that wasn't any good. The Jungle Book 2, maybe? Or
Like the
something?
cartoon one, or
It might have been Jungle Book 2 or some other like part 2. It might have been part 2 of a bad cartoon movie. Some Gwyneth Paltrow movie where she's like a flight attendant. All the movies were really bad that time. Some Val Kilmer movie where he's like a spy. But all these movies I would go and see the midnight previews of, and they were just terrible. And so I'd write my terrible articles. And one time I heard some girls reading the paper, and they said, "Oh, what did he think? Oh, he always hates the movies." And I was just like, I mean, they aren't any good, but I kind of felt like I'm getting that reputation a little bit. But then the next semester came, and I went to the theater like normal on like the midnight preview night, and I said, "Hey, I'm the movie critic guy from the East Texan paper, and I'm just here to." And they would always give me he would give me like a popcorn and like a drink, and like let me in for free. And he comes over there and he says, "Oh yeah, we're not gonna do that anymore." And I was like, "Oh, why not?" He says, "Well, so we can't really afford it." And I was like, "Well, I mean, it's not really a loss for you. It's like I can't pay for it the other way. So if you don't want to give me the popcorn and the movie, don't do that, or I can stand in the back." And he goes, "You don't like any of the movies. Every time you just talk about how bad they are, and then people won't want to come see them." And I went, "Oh." He says, "You can buy a ticket if you want." I was like, I didn't really bring any money, so I'm going to go. And so, I mean, I really was a poor college student. I couldn't afford to pay for all these movies, so I just stopped doing it. And usually I didn't have to stand in line because he would just let me in, so I would have to come and stand in line like hours early and stuff. But I learned pretty quickly that, like, when you're paid, when like somebody has a vested financial interest in something, if you're writing what they don't like, they won't fund that. So I wasn't being paid. My kind of research was being funded, but he wouldn't fund it anymore when what I was saying wasn't stuff he liked. And this is something that you come to understand with sponsorship over time, is that whoever's paying the paychecks wants to see results that favor what they want to see. And so that can definitely affect whether or not the articles you're seeing on the internet are credible or something you should even listen to, and why those New York Times articles might be suspect for what they say about Amazon. And then once you've got the authorship, the sponsorship, and you've looked at the audience as well, so the audience is like, who are they writing for? I worry too about watching my daughter watching these YouTube videos, and my wife says she watches them with her and verifies they're okay, but it's like, it's so strange. My daughter plays with toys, but she wants to watch YouTube videos, and my wife will let her, of other people playing with toys, who I sometimes think are adults who've gotten toys that my daughter has, and they're playing with these Paw Patrol toys and making little stories like on the TV show, which my daughter then goes and models. Like she plays with the toys too and tries to make little stories. And I've been actually very impressed with the fact she's doing that. But I don't know who these people are, why they're doing this. I wonder if they're doing it for ad money. I'm trying to figure, and I know that my toddler daughter is their audience, this adult person's audience. But I worry about, like, what is the reason for this? And so sometimes people are catering to their audience for some reason, and you have to figure out what that reason is. Or sometimes you just look at the audience, like who's the site being created for, and does that affect how it's being written, basically, or how it's being presented? Because sometimes it does. And that can affect the credibility as well, because they're trying to sell to a particular market, and that changes the way they talk about things. So this all can bring us to purpose. Look at the author, the sponsor, the audience, figure out if there are any kind of motivations, any purposes they might have hidden underneath the surface to establish whether or not what they're saying is something we need to listen to. And once we've done all that, then we decide that we can use it along with whether or not the article is current, recent enough that we can trust it. If we saw some article that said that technology is crazy, y'all think about that printing press. We'd be like, oh, this is an old article. Computers have come out since then, so it's pretty old. You just got to be aware of the motivations of the articles you read, whether website or otherwise. Look for authors, look for sponsors, look for who they're written for to determine whether or not you can trust it and use it as research on what you're writing. You have a great day. We'll talk about, I think, APA next time. And then the paper will be due on Thursday night. Essay 2. Oh, I've got all the papers graded, by the way, the narrative essays. Just so FYI. Well, that was fun, huh? Guy talked about like English stuff. Something about a library. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So there's authorship, sponsorship, purpose and audience, and currency. Just who wrote it, who were they employed by, who was the sponsor there. Do either of those have political motivations, financial motivations? Financial motivations and who pays your bills, that is very much regarded as and in fact, if you don't, I think if you have significant debts, you can't get government security clearance even. Even the government acknowledges that when somebody has control of you money-wise, it can have a significant effect on your credibility and whether the things you're saying are true or whether they are motivated by financial issues. Additionally, who is it being written to? Are they trying to cater to a certain audience? What does that purpose seem to be? But I think purpose rolls into all of those: sponsorship, authorship, and readership, really. Audience. And then currency. How current is the information? That's more relevant for when you're doing science type research. If you ever want to do some extra viewing, I haven't gone all through this series, but John Green, the guy who wrote A Fault in Our Stars, granted, why would that make him a source for this? I've watched these videos, and he finds that or talks to you about how to navigate online information. And it's a way that's sort of interesting to watch, and they're shorter little videos. And I've made it through Who Can You Trust? Crash course number 4. I haven't gone all the way through past using Wikipedia and beyond that. So I can't vouch for the whole thing. I'm assuming social media at the very end is going to say basically avoid it all. But from what I've seen so far, it's fairly good. Who's behind the information all the way through this one? So from what I've seen, it's pretty good if you want to find even better ways to check whether you're good at determining what makes credible information or doesn't make credible information. I do believe that there was a research study that found that, this could even be mentioned in this video, that middle school, high school, and college age students, as well as adults, were very terrible at being able to determine what made credible information when shown examples of it. People could not distinguish between articles and ads. And when scrolling through social media, researchers found that when they had 3 groups of people, one group that would scroll through social media and every time they saw an article with a title, they would read that article. Another group that saw titles of articles, and another group that was like a control group. But the people who only saw titles of articles and then kept scrolling displayed a higher level of confidence that they knew about the issue than the people who read the articles. So basically, the less you actually know about a topic, the more confident you feel. So if you see a title, you think, well, I know the whole story now, and you keep scrolling. And it's kind of dangerous for us to live in a society like that, to be actors in a society like that. We need to be aware of information. We need to know that it's credible. We need to look into it. And if somebody tells you, hey, I actually know some facts that counteract what you're saying there, It's worth taking the time to look it up to see if you are wrong. Because frequently I'll tell people stuff that I believe is true, and then they point out to me, well, actually, that's not what I'm aware of. I believe that this is the case. And I'm like, really? And so then I'll go look up to verify. I'd say because of the type of employment that I have, where like I mostly talk about, you know, English and credible information in a composition course with research, I'm right most of the time, but there are times, definitely times when I'm wrong. And I would say I'm only right about 70% of the time, which is not high by any means. I mean, it should be a lot higher if I'm teaching English. But try as hard as possible to only have an opinion if you have the information, the knowledge, and that you're very, very good at finding whether the information that you've got is credible in and of itself. So that's all I have to say about that, or all I'm going to say about that. I have plenty to say about that, but I'm not going to save that for a day when you're not stuck at home watching me on a video only, and you have ways to ask questions about things. So I'll see you in the next video. What am I doing? What am I doing? Bye. 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 you.